Citizen Sleeper continues. Next round is yours. Moritz arrives at the table with a couple of steel drink canisters typical of the hub's only bar, the Gimbal Lounge. He settles into the webbing beside the table and clunks them down onto the magnetic table. This place, you have decided, is ridiculous. A rapidly spinning cavernous sphere, the gimbal's weak gravity, just like the gravity at the eye's rim, is created by its gut-wrenching rotation. The interior surface of the sphere is the gimbal's floor, which descends towards the equator, where one long bar loops around the entire circumference. Tumbling out from that central ring are an array of booths and seating arrangements, equipped with all kinds of harnesses and webbing to keep customers in place. Those harnesses are there because the gimbal doesn't quite spin up fast enough, and you watch as the clientele bounce towards the bar in lazy arcs or shift from table to table with graceful leaps. What are you thinking? Asks Morris, noticing you staring out into the gimbal. How weird this place is. What to do next, or nothing. Moritz looks out at the gimbal. I try not to think too hard about that, he says absent-mindedly. Moritz takes a drink and stretches. So, Sleeper, you sticking around? If you'll have me. I have things to take care of, or not sure. I have things to take care of. Moritz nods. Yeah, I thought you might. Moritz rubs the back of his head one cycle at a time. That's how we'll take it, nice and easy. You aren't sure if he is talking to himself or you. We'll make it. So let's start already. He lifts his drink for a toast. To the next cycle, he pronounces and knocks it back. Later, when you finally leave the gimbal, Moritz is still laughing. You help him out of the spinning gimbal and back into the hub, sending him on his way home to the bay. Then you pause for a moment to watch the stars as they spin and spin around the eye. You smile to yourself and think of Bliss and Ankita out there somewhere among those points of light. To the next cycle. Now, where I go and what I do is I'm not sure right now. I don't see any options out here. Base camp. Do I click on the cord? Scrap for passage. You find a small shuttle scavenging supplies from the cordon to take back to the flotilla. They'll take you to if you bring some scrap along. So I'm going to need 2 pieces of scrap to do this. Alright. I'll go to the wastes and try to gather scrap. Now I've got 2. And I'm out of dice. So I can come here, put those 2 in there, scrap for passage. Which now opens up this, the flotilla, the Refugee Fleet. What I do here, a couple of repeatable actions. Haul supplies. Getting the necessary supplies to each ship to meet their needs is a huge task. Joining the hauling teams is the simplest thing you can do to help. Damage control. The wave hits systems more than anything, especially those on the ships, so there's 1,000 tiny repair jobs to do. One is danger, the other is risky. Can't do anything because I'm out of dice. So I had better end the cycle. I come back with low energy and I'm fading up here. And the lower this bar goes, or the more to the left this bar goes, the less dice you get each turn. So I'm thinking about stabilizer at this point. Before the next one. So I'm low on energy. So come back to the commune. Safe option there. So bring my energy up. I've got a new thing to work on now. To come back over here, I've got a 6 dice. And I'm thinking about, if you do horse supplies, you have a chance to advance Flotilla's friend down here. Shifting ships, systems and social structures, the only way to navigate the flotilla is by rolling up your sleeves and helping out. But if the roll fails, you lose some condition. It's all repeatable action, so this also feeds into Flotilla's friend as well, damage control. So I might go there. And Flotilla's friend is increased. I've only got a 2 die left. So, work the stacks as a safe option. Get some cryo and back to the dorm. Now, stabilizer. Use one of those. My condition, my body's repaired now, so right back up to the top. And the cycle. So I get maximum number of dice the next roll. Energy goes down. And yeah. That adds 2 to the dice. Top my energy up. Now I'm ready to come here and work on this stuff. To do horse supplies. Do that as well, so advance all this on. This one, this option over here adds 2 to the dice, so I've got a 3 there, so if I put that in there I get a 5. I'm gonna risk it. And yeah, I'm 1 segment away. Just a 2 die left. This one over here adds 1 to the dice, and it's a safe option, so I'll work the stacks. And I'm out of dice again now, so I'm gonna... Oh, complete. I can't. I've got to complete active scenes. I have an active scene up here. As you walk into the bay of the climbing foyer, the familiarity of the space overcomes any trepidation. It feels good to be back, and the return feels earned, especially after all the work it took to figure out a route through the flotilla's jumble of ships that might lead you to this blue streak. You see Ash and Peak immediately sitting at the back of the bay, deep in conversation. Their closeness causes you to stop, suddenly aware that you might be interrupting something private. Peak is gesturing wildly as Ash stares out into the middle distance, hunched over. As Peak tries to get her attention, she spots you. Sleeper Ash nods. Didn't quite turn out like we hoped, right? Peak stops and glances between the two of you, the tension rising. Maybe if you'd flown better. The plan was always risky. Or, I'm sorry. For me, more than you, Ash shakes her head. Maybe if you spent less time trying to question it, things would have gone better. Peak looks nervous. It has worked out. They appeal to you, the flux event, not the entire cordon system of flying. The flotilla is free and Havenage are backing off. Flux event? That's what the refugees are calling it, Peak explains. Apparently that's what they called it when it started happening around Ember. What exactly is happening? Hard to tell. It's some kind of disruptive wave that only affects electrical systems. Peak chips in. Typically systems are screened against radiation and interference out here anyway, but this seems to be dulled, but not stopped by those defences. The crisis continues, Ash sighs. The cordon may be down, but this brings a whole other set of problems. You should tell them. Ish. Peak glances at her, please. Ish doesn't respond. Tell you what, you stare at her back, waiting for a response. Please, Ish. Haven't they shown that they can be trusted? Peak nods towards you. Ash turns, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She goes to start and then stops. You can see the anger in her eyes. But you realise it is not directed at you or anyone else. She is angry with herself. I brought weapons to the flotilla, she pauses, and now Havenich has them. You suddenly remember the sleek crates that were tucked into the bay marked with a yellow signal. The ones Ish told you were just supplies. What were you thinking? Havenich? I was thinking that if the cordon wasn't going to be lifted, the refugees would need something to change that. She stares at you defiantly. Would you rather they just stayed quiet and died like good citizens? We hope that they will keep them safe, but given recent events, Pete glances nervously at Ish. We aren't so sure that Havenich is the right place for the weapons to be. I wouldn't put it past them to use them to take the cordon back by force, Ish glares. They are scared and losing control. In my experience, that's when institutions do dangerous things. Whether that's true, we can't do anything about it right now, Ish, short of marching into the yards at the other end of the eye and taking them back. Ish looks like that is exactly what she would like to do. Pete smiles nervously, plus we have other things to be getting on with. I want to understand the flux, Sleeper, to study it. Pete's eyes light up. This thing is changing the entire system, causing problems across the inner system, driving refugees off Ember's moons, and now it's here. If we don't do something about it, Peak pauses, it's a problem for all of us. I can see more immediate problems, Ash sniffs. Peak ignores her. I've been looking at the networks, and when the flux event hit, it changed things. It shuffled systems, corrupted nodes, and broke open data stores. They take out a slate and slow you a flickering polygon. Some of these fluxed nodes have appeared near the epicenter of the event, but I can't get access. You, however, I saw the way you work with data when we were preparing for the run. I think you can get into these things. I want you to find a flux node and bring me anything you can extract. They come and go, but most can be found in the barely functioning networks of the wastes. Start there. Perhaps together we can find something that might point us to what the flux is and where it comes from. Okay. They smile. I knew you'd agree. Ash looks indignant. Don't waste too much time chasing ghosts, Sleeper. There are people on this flotilla that need any help they can get. I'm sure Sleeper can do both, Ash. Peak smiles at you. I'll see you here when you have something. Good hunting. And they wave at you out as Ish stomps away to make plans for Rome. Study the flux. So deliver flux data there. Peak asked you to help them extract data from a flux node in the wastes. I'm out of dice right now. I won't be able to do anything in the cycle. I'm back. A couple of fives. This is where you gather scrap. So this is not quite completed yet, is it? If I put that one in there, that turns into a 5. Now it's done. Someone told me I should be thanking you. The voice comes from behind you, cutting through the chaos of the crowded, cavernous bay. You freeze. Don't be afraid now, I've been hunting you, sure, but for all the best reasons. You turn to see bright eyes set in a rough face framed in rusted metal. So, he holds out his hand, the other clamped firmly around a knotted wooden cane. So, shake his hand. Do I know you? He grips you firmly with a heavy and calloused hand. Forgive me, as soon as I saw you, I knew who you were. Sol puts a hand on your shoulder. I've been told a sleeper was part of that supply run that came in several cycles ago. He nods. A very welcome act, and we all thank you for it. Walk with me, sleeper. Sol sets off through the bay, his partial suit hissing and creaking as it helps carry you through the busy crowds. You notice people making way for you, and Sol standing back and letting you pass. You pass a makeshift kitchen, steaming pots on heating elements, a restless queue collecting meals. That owl guy that came through isn't exactly a full meal, but with what we have here, we've been able to make it work. You see a ladle of a greenish stew dished out. The colour is something, isn't it? Sol smiles. Sol leads you out of the larger bay into a corridor lined with storage rooms that are now serving as doors. You see someone filling a metal container from a standpipe, the water gushing out readily. Sol nods to the person as he passes. Just a little further now, Sol leads you into a freight elevator and whistles to some unseen operator to start it up. It jerks into life, and as you pass through the layers of the ship, you see people on every level, supplies crammed into every available space, and sparks leaping in bursts as the ship is reshaped and modified to sustain its population. If Havenich were expecting an exodus from the flotilla, the flux event has put a stop to that. Some stretches. Some have crossed to the eye, but many just to gather salvage or score a hot meal. So the pressure on our supplies is shrinking, but not like I'd hoped. With the flux reaching all the way out here, people are starting to understand that our journey might not be over. Sol stares grimly ahead. Suddenly the freight elevator screeches to a halt, and Sol leads you slowly out into a wide room of chairs and terminals, ringed by a mezzanine with a glass roof above showing the distant hub and the far curve of the eye beyond. The people at the terminals nod to him as he enters. This is your ship, or stay silent. Sol nods. That's right, the Pilgrim seed is mine to care for. He leads you up to a railed platform at the centre of the room and stops. She chose me, so to speak, well at least her crew did, and I do my best to serve them. Sol looks around the bridge of the ship, pained expression on his face. I'll admit that the responsibility isn't one that suits me, though we rarely get to choose such things. He glances back at you. But you, Sleeper, from what I understand, you chose to try to help us here, is that right? I was helping my friends, I did my best to, something like that. Don't be ashamed of it, Sol shakes his head. I don't mean to shame you. But I have to ask you, Sleeper, why are you here now? Sol leans back and you feel his eyes on you, assessing you. I still want to help. The Flux event, I want to know more. Flux event. I appreciate the honesty. I had figured as much. Sol flexes the shoulder that is free of the suit. Looking at you now, I can see that an event like that, well, it would have had a big impact. He smiles a half smile. I have tens of thousands of people here on the Pilgrim seed, Sleeper, and there's tens of thousands more out on the flotilla. He leans against a railing. A lot of them are looking to me to provide some future for them, some path out of this dead end we've gotten into. And this cycle, this very cycle, the thing we've been running away from, it just caught up with us. So these people are scared, Sleeper, and they are looking for me for reassurance. And then on the same cycle, someone tells me that they see you on board, a Sleeper, the same Sleeper, they reckon. They wanted so strongly to send a ship past the Gordon to see us. Sol scratches at his beard. So the first thing I wanted to do was thank you for that, for your interest, he pauses. But the second thing I wanted to do was find out what you want from us. Sol's suit hisses and creaks. I think that's fair, don't you? Sol takes a deep breath. So what is it? Tell me about the Flux. What's happened around Ember? Let me help these people. Tell me about the Flux. Someone at a terminal calls out to Sol and he shouts some orders back. He turns to you. Apologies. He smiles that half smile. I'll tell you what, Sleeper. Let's you and me make a deal. You want information, I understand that, but I have a list of needs longer than the rim of the eye itself, he grimaces. So you do some things for me, and then we can talk about what's been happening in the system, and I will answer all your questions and then some. I may be the captain of the Pilgrim seed, and she is certainly the biggest ship in this flotilla, but I'm not the only captain here. We have ships here from each of the moons. Ember's hearth, just like us, but plenty more from Ember's song and even Ember's step. The moons have been at each other's throats, Sleeper. What with the pressure of the flux, the bad blood from the old days, so leans in, we aren't exactly all in alignment. What I need is a way to stop things escalating. For the crews on these ships and their captains to feel happy and comfortable enough to forget old rivalries and past crimes. He flinches at something. Those from Ember's Step, well, they've always been proud, but that pride seems to be a barrier to compromise right now. The last set of supplies I sent their way, they refused. Meanwhile, I have a supply shuttle at the docking axis of Ember's Song ships gather at, but they have taken far too many cycles to unload. Maybe if you're heading that way, you can look in on them. Sounds like we may have some new songs with this DLC. I'm no politician, Sleeper, but if I don't... Sol stops, he leans back and flexes, his suit screeching. He groans a little, and you see the weight of the flotilla sitting on his shoulders, the suit, the only thing keeping him vertical beneath all that pressure. Look, you'll see for yourself if you go. Meet the others, Sleeper. See what they need. Keep them aligned. He speaks through the pain, his voice cloaked. I understand. I hope, Sol grits his teeth. You are what you appear to be, Sleeper. He smiles his half-smile despite the pain, because I'm not sure I can take any more bad news. Plus, there's plenty to be done here on the Pilgrim scene too. If you have a moment to pitch in, there's never enough around here. That's something I have learned the hard way. Sol settles onto his cane, the pain visibly receding. Alright, I have 1,000 things to attend to now, Sleeper, so you'll have to find your own way out. And with that, Sol sits at his terminal and with slow and careful movements. You head back down in the freight elevator, and as you do, you see again the layers and layers of chaotic life this vessel and all the vessels of the flotilla hold. New drive. Got some new things to do. Study the flux. Which is in the wastes. Also have flotilla support as well now. Sol is asking you to help bring stability to the ships from Ember's Hearth, Song and Step within the flotilla. So we can track that. Pilgrim seed support, these are repeatable actions. Even Sol's own ship requires help, but figuring out what jobs need doing first and who to help is a challenge. Safe option. Pilgrim seed supply, and I got plenty of these, the caps. So supply some of those. Hand them over. So that's repeatable, and so is this. +1 on the dice. So that advances that up. And I can supply some of these. And that makes progress. Making good progress. Sol finds you deep in the layers of the Pilgrim seed working on a patch for a life support vent. You hear him coming, his suit hissing as he does. I had to ask around to find you, Ismail. Seems you know the place better than me these days. Doubt it. I've put in the time. Sol nods. I was on the work crew that built this thing, so maybe you're right. He winks. Sol holds out a hand. Stand up and let me see you. He pulls you to your feet. I don't believe we've ever had a sleeper on Ember's hearth. Sol looks you up and down. You sure do make me wish we had. Could have done with a few workers as good as you. Thank you. Sol nods. You're welcome. Seem like I owe you some answers, seeing as you've been working hard on the Pilgrim seed these past cycles. He leans against a crate, his suit creaking. What do you want to know about? The flux, Ember's hearth, you. Well, my other task is study the flux, and as I'm thinking the flux. Soul size, that's what I imagined. He scratches at his beard. I can't say I'm an expert, but I can tell you what we witnessed on Hearth. At first we ignored it. A few forms had their automation systems blink out. Lifter suits locked up, bots reset their schedules, nothing we hadn't seen before. But then the news came out of that they had been hit harder. The local network had gone down and no one could get it back up. It was rough for a while, but out in the farmland we were used to that. Pass or farmland? Capital of Hearth. Tens of thousands of souls made it their home, so grimaces. Anyway, we thought the flux was a freak event until the day they got the network running again. That's when the cascade happened. System after system corrupted, data lost, and then another flux hit, and another. The bots were running circles in the fields. People had to be cut out of lifter suits like mine. And the city, I never saw it, but I heard from the others, soul shivers. It only got worse from there. We couldn't seem to fight it. It cut us right open. That's what I know about the flux. Some folks say it came from the inner system, that it might be connected to some old tech there, or something, but I've never heard anything more than rumours. Soul scratches their beard. Sorry, I don't have better news. Soul shifts on the crate. Anything else you wanted to ask? There was something. Ember's hearth. Sure, he smiles. I mean, I spent my whole life on that rock, so I plenty to tell. I'll save my life story for another time, he winks, but the short of it is that Hearth is the first of Ember's moons, the biggest and the most populated, which is down to the successful terraforming systems Sybil set up back when Solheim owned the system. Terraforming? That's right, Ember's Step was the first try, but that failed. Hearth was when they perfected their system. However, Sol holds up a hand. Despite what people might say, Hearth was never fully stable. Sol shakes his head. Sybil liked to talk it up, but after they pulled out and Solheim left, our people discovered they'd have to keep the systems running themselves or the place would soon end up as dry as Step. Hearth was good as long as the evaporators kept running, kept filling our skies with clouds. Even after the collapse, our people kept those things going, turning that subsurface ocean into a periwinkle blue sky. Sol smiles. Flux ended that though, and when they failed, the rains failed and the harvest without some pauses. And soon you have a city without a way to feed itself. Sol shudders. That's when some of us, made the decision to set out on this place. He gestures at the Pilgrim seed and look for another future. Sol shifts on the crate. Anything else you wanted to ask? You. Sol squints at you. You want to know about me? I'm not sure that was part of the deal I was thinking of, Sleeper. Unless you're asking about this, he raps on the metal of his suit. In case you haven't guessed, this is the only thing keeping me vertical. He adjusts his shoulder piece. It's a lifter suit made for working the fields. We had to modify it so I could walk around after the accident. And that's all I'm saying, Sleeper, because to be honest with you, I don't owe you more than that. You want to know about the flux, about Ember's hearth, go ahead, but don't pry into my life and I won't pry into yours. Sol let the silence sit, staring hard at the floor. The suit seems to loom over him, looking more like a burden than a support. With the bars around his head, you suddenly start to think of it as a cage. Look, I don't mean to be rude, let's leave it there. There's too many eyes on me and this ship as it is, and I'd rather just slip into the background, thank you very much. Sol shifts on the crate. Anything else you wanted to ask? I'm good for now. You sure? I'm sure. Sol stands flexing against the suit. He takes his cane in his hand. Keep it up, Sleeper. He smiles as he leaves. You're making me think I need to start making new plans for this place. With that, Sol leaves, and you wonder what he means. As he creaks away down the corridor, you can't help but feel there's more to him than it seems. So I got flotilla support. Still running here. But cycle that means wait a couple of cycles before I can continue. So, ooh, there's more, and I've got 30 minutes on the clock, so see you next time.